Buy, hold, sell, round 21. We are out of the swamp and into the end game here. So your team should be looking pretty good right now, and it should be getting a bit better this week too. Biz, mate, are you excited to grab a big gun for this week?
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to get guns in. I've got a lot of good guns in my side, but last week I traded Buller 1 week too early for Garrick. But in saying that, Garrick did decent with the HIA, and he's randomly a center this week as well. So I guess I'm winning. But this is the best part of the season, I reckon, because your teams are stacking up. Every guy in your team can score 50 plus. It's fun to watch them. And if you're behind, there's less risk in going for pods because you've got nothing to lose. What about you, Longy? You excited?
Yeah, it's a great week for fantasy. And like you're saying, you don't have to worry about buys too much now. You probably don't have to worry about depth too much now either. You've got that 8 trades, probably have 6 after last week, maybe even 4. So, no, I think just going for the upside right now and sort of backing your picks at this point is the play. Let's get into some of those picks here. So in the buys section, look, we talked a lot last week about all those top guys. And there are guys on last week's list that are still true right now that are on this list. So guys like Greg Marzu, who we said to pick up, he scored 73 last week. He's still a buy. We talked about some other guys as well. Like, Isaiah Yo's on this list. He's still a buy as well. Latrell Mitchell is one that's not here. He's come back this week. I want to watch a week and just see him get through that unscathed before adding him on. But we'll be talking about him probably more next week. For the buys this week, though, this first few, man, we can hit these pretty fast before we get into the interesting ones. Nathan Cleary, really simple. He didn't come back last week. He's coming back this week. It's a good fixture. They've obviously taken their time with him. The re-injury risk is reasonably high with that injury. So if you want to be cautious and wait another week, you absolutely can. But if you do buy a Cleary, you're probably getting a guy that you can captain this week.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add. I guess he's got a really high break even, but against the Dogs, he could, Dogs aren't defending very well right now, so he can score 100 plus this week. And the way I think about it is like 40, 50 extra K cash is not going to do much good at this time of year. So try and get Cleary in as quick as I can. And in terms of the re-injury risk, they've waited 7 weeks on this injury. So they haven't rushed him back like they might, with their gun player. So I think the risk of re-injury here is low. And Cleary isn't, he's a pretty durable player. So, touch wood that he stays on the park for the rest of the year. So I'll probably be getting him in this week.
Big call. Does that mean you're not getting Payne Haas then?
I just held Payne Haas over the last few weeks. So, yeah.
You're already over it.
I think I'll have to trade out a gun. I need to get rid of Fafita, quickly on Fafita. I think I'm going to have to trade out a guy like Tohu or something to get Cleary. So it's not the best, but what can you do?
I think you have to do it. And we're going to talk about that in holds and sells. Because a guy like Tohu, a guy like Tarbonnet, they're in that echelon where they're not quite a top-tier gun. So you can look at those moves. I'm going to jump on Haas and Fafita really quickly. So for Payne Haas, look, the upside is he's the best middle in the game. That's really simple. His role is cemented. There's no reason they'll rest him. He has attacking upside as well. The downside is that you do have that little injury risk. You picked up that ankle niggle. In previous years, Haas has been one of those guys who gets pretty disproportionately affected by those sorts of niggling injuries. And he does tend to sort of drop off in scoring when he has those issues. So you want to be confident he's coming out of that with a full bill of health, which he seems to be. And then for Dave Fafita, look, there's not a lot of risk there. So I think the Titans are going to keep fighting for that top 8 spot. They're in a bit of a tough spot after losing to Parramatta last week in a pretty tough to watch game. But look, for Dave Fafita, there's just not a lot of competition there. It's Cleese Haas, it's Joe Simpson. They can't really rest him at all without taking a massive downgrade from one of the best edge-back rowers in the game to subpar, basically. So I don't see them giving him a rest. Tino being out doesn't help. But I think Dave Fafita is still one of those guys you want to have. You want to have him over someone like Jacob Preston there. Feel free to comment on Fafita, but I'll throw Cam Murray over to you as well. Look, 654K. What do you think of that one as a buy this week?
Yeah, Cam Murray's a good one because you're getting a cut price keeper. Rabbits have fallen off a cliff since the early part of the season. They're going to even have to start stringing games together to safely put themselves into 8, let alone top 4. So Cam Murray, expect big minutes. He should be pretty fresh, after the bye. They do have one more bye, I think around 26 or so. So,
yeah. It's head-to-head grand final week.
Yeah, so if you're a head-to-head player, Murray, if you have the depth to cover him in the grand final, maybe bring him in. But overall, he's a great trade because at 650k, you're getting a player who has shown he's an 850 to 900k player at times. And he's a great cash down option. If you've got someone at the 700, 750k mark and you need 50k or so to get Cleary or someone else, then you can move someone down to Murray, keep the same scoring profile, but get a bit of extra cash in hand. So he's definitely a good buy this week. I don't think there's much else to be said. He's just a player who can score 60 plus on his, well, I say on his day, but he can actually do 60 plus pretty consistently. He had a mid-60s average last year. He started the year strong before falling off a bit, and now you're getting him at a great price. So he's definitely on my watch list to see if I can bring him in this week.
Do you see any reason why he won't go back to being that guy, or what are your thoughts there?
I think last year was a bit like that 1 ppm is very difficult for anyone to maintain. Like that is not really sustainable for a big minute player. But in saying that, I think his minutes will probably be at close to the 70-minute mark towards the back end of the season as Rabbits need to keep their season alive and aim for that top 4 spot, which, everyone thought they would have been premiership contenders after the first 10 weeks, but it's kind of slipping for them. So I think I think he can average 55 to 60 in 70 minutes at minimum with, big game upside because he is an exciting player and has a lot of offensive stats. So, I'm not too worried about Murray. So at 650k, you've de-risked him. Like at worst, he averages 50 to 55, right? So you're not getting someone who's going to underperform at his price.
I totally agree. And one thing I want to add here too for him is Souths get Jai Arrow back right now. They got Kaloa Matangi back from Origin. Look, Totola, he's back to full strength right now as well. Tom Burgess missed a bit of time. He's back in too. Latrell's back as well. So the more attackingly threatening Souths are, the better it is for Cam Murray. Because his job in that team is to run nice balls, throw a few assists here and there, but more run those short balls and get those quick play the balls before those attacking plays. So when they're playing good attacking footy on the edges, it means that Cam Murray's getting more space in the middle and he gets through for those tries off Cook. So for guys like Cam Murray, Damien Cook as well, I think they benefit massively from Souths being at full strength, which we haven't seen for quite a while now. And yet, like you said, they've lost quite a few games recently as well. So yeah, he's a slam dunk buy, I reckon. Like I'm looking at Tarpanay for Cam Murray myself to get that bit of extra cash. It's 100k in the hand, and I think it's an upgrade in scoring as well because Josh Papali'i's back too for the Raiders. So yeah, easy buy. And the last guy here I'm going to throw on, look, Val Holmes, 709k. He wasn't a guy. He was sort of gently earmarked for me coming down the stretch, but his last 4 games have all been between about 50 points and 75 points. So he's just been pumping out big games. Look, the Cowboys are in absolutely insane form. They've got some good fixtures coming up as well. I'm sort of looking at him and going, that's probably the top center for down the stretch here. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, the thing is, I don't disagree. I don't really want to predict a top center down the track because it's such a difficult position to predict because I feel like the center position, maybe the wing position, is definitely the one that's just dependent on whoever gets on a hot run, both in real life and just, their team as well. Like look at Tunga, right? All of a sudden he's up at like 4 or 5 big games and he's gone from a 40 average to a 50 average, which, is he a 50 average center? No, he's not. He's never really shown that before, but he's had these massive games that probably aren't sustainable. And all of a sudden he's the top center. And look at Dane, Gagai this year. So it's really hard to tell. I think there's a mix of players who can all compete for this spot. Val Holmes, Joey Manu. You saw Bailey Simonson, how hot he got for a while. Even Ruben Garrick, now that he's a center, could be the top center.
You could throw Lemuelu into that.
Yeah, Lemuelu, like when he's consistently 80 minutes in the second row, he's got a high 40s average as well. So hard to tell. I think you just got to pick one of these guys, and if you've got the cash for all of them, you can just say, okay, who's got the easiest run home? Who looks like they're in really good form and whose team are getting hot. So Val Holmes kind of ticks all those boxes. And Cowboys are in that, 7-8 spot where they need to fight to make the 8. So it's not like Val Holmes is going to get a rest towards the back of the season. Whereas a guy like Tunga, right, you get him in. Panthers never play their superstars in the last week of the year. So just assume you're not going to have him for the last week. So, I agree with you. Holmes could be a blockbuster buy.
Holmes is a wild one, but you're right. You gotta look at the real footy as well. At center, especially, it's not a statistical analysis there. Really, there's not a lot of guys with a work rate that makes them a 40 average. It's all real world stuff. It's all, are they getting good ball from the inside? Are they getting ball on the front foot? Are they getting one-on-ones?
Yeah.
Are they scoring tries?
Yeah. Have they got a good winger who can score tries and give them assists on the last pass, like things like that?
Yeah, and that's what puts Val. I mean, I've got Joey Manu, right? And when he's playing center, I think Val's better than Joey Manu at center for fantasy. But then Garrick, when he was center, I think he's behind probably both those guys. But as a fullback, he's probably in that conversation.
I think Garrick is the. I think now that Garrick is available at center, I think I might be biased because I bought him last week, but I think he'll be the best center for the run home.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. See, I can't get Val either because I've got Garrick, Joey Manu, and Lemuelu.
Yeah,
and one of them will normally sit at wing fullback, but it just means other things. So
yeah, well, I am tempted to downgrade Joey Manu this week because I think we'll talk about the buy holds, the holds and the sells, but when you need cash, you can also start looking at players you might not need who are overvalued, and Manu's one of them. His price is in the low 700s off the back of him playing fullback, but he's not worth 700k as a center. So
big call. Well, there's a guy we're going to talk about later on that fits that bill for a guy you can trade into. Well, let's go into the cash outs next. And we've got two sections here. So we've got cash outs, then cash cows.
Yeah.
The cash outs are pure sub 250k guys. They are cash outs, right? Cash cows are more.
This is the highest quality photo you could find.
Oh, come on. I was scrapping things together today. Look at the background.
I love it.
But look, and that show, like, it's unclear because his future is unclear. So I'm going to start with Sil Wong just to segue into that and pretend that was intentional. But look, the unclear photo, it speaks to Sil Wong, right? Like, he's come into the team. He's been in pretty fantastic form as far as sort of debut back row goes. And he scored that try last week. He ran a really nice line. I was watching the Chooks last week, and I'll tell you what, there's not a lot of players in that team who are running onto the ball when their playmakers drift across the field. A lot of guys want the ball early, and they want to play that under 7 sort of hero ball. Whereas Sil Wong, he's that one guy in that team. Even when he only plays sort of 30 minutes a game. But when he gets on the field, he's running those crash balls. He's running the balls that Angus Crichton and Satili Tupanua last year were running and scoring tries off every week. So if I'm Trent Robinson, I'm looking at this and thinking, I've got Victor Radley on the edge right now. Radley is good at a lot of things. I don't rate him as an edge back row. A lot of people have enjoyed him at the edge back row spot. But I'd be thinking, like, we've got to change something right now for this year. And also, we've got to build towards next year. Let's give Sil Wong a go. Let's give him 50, 60 minutes on the edge. Let's see what he can do. So look, you're buying him right now for 240k, and that is very cheap, right? That's the point of buying him. He's a cheap cash out. But there is a chance that down the stretch, he could then come into the first grade side and also be depth for you. So that's the upside you're buying him for. But don't buy him expecting that soon. Just buy him as a guy that you're going to sit on the edge of your bench. And look, it's a lottery ticket, right?
Yeah, he's definitely looking like. And the one thing I'll say is I looked at his reserve grade stats, and he averages 57 in the reserve. So he's got fantasy pedigree for sure. So even if he gets 40, 50 minutes, he could be pretty solid. And Roosters, they're running out of time. Like a couple more losses and the 8's going to be beyond them, and they can start blooding future talent because right now they're playing guys like Nathan Brown for 80 minutes. Like Brownie, I love Nathan Brown, but if you're looking towards the future, you're not giving Nathan Brown 80 minutes, right? So if the season gets written off, then guys like Wong could come into the starting side, like you say, and get 40, 50 minutes.
Yeah, he's a juicy one. Look, I'll throw this out to you next because I know you know a bit about him. Jarrell Skelton. What do you think of him? 226k is the cheapest one here, almost at base price.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Skelton last week. I got him in just because I needed a player for last week, and I saw that he averaged about 45 in reserve, so I looked at his profile. He just looks like a big winger who can suck up a lot of meters, break tackles, and he is a guy. Like, he is very stocky. He kind of reminds me of a budget, Craig Marzu. The thing I was impressed with him, like, even though the Dogs had a lot of points put on them last week, I don't think he made any errors. He didn't miss any tackles. He made like about 150, 200 meters. Got them going at each set. And most importantly, I didn't see any real defensive lapses from him. Like I was watching that game to see how he did in terms of, do I think he'll get dropped next week? But a lot of I don't think any of the tries, maybe one, were scored down his wing. And if they were, it wasn't because he had rushed up stupidly or missed a bad tackle.
Was he? I'm just trying to think. Marking Taruva and Peachy.
No, I'm talking about last week's game. Who are they playing against last week? Who were they against last week again? It's escaping me. They got smashed. I'm mind blanking here. What was it against? This is great preparation. I want to look this up now because I should know this off the top of my head. They had the Broncos last week. That's right.
Broncos.
I was thinking about the Roosters. And I'm like, no, Roosters haven't belted anyone this year. Anyway, so yeah, he was. Who was he up against? He was playing on the right side, I believe. So I thought he just did a good job, and they were scoring a lot of their points on the other edge. So I think I see Adokar on the extended bench, but he's hamstring. He's a speed player. I don't think he's back anytime soon. But Skelton's a guy who'll get you a few games, but is he a home run option? Not really. Like he's not going to be in the team long. But he's one to watch out for next year.
Yeah, I mean, I do like what you described there. Look, because the reserve grade stats are awesome. Dogs, they historically play some pretty good attacking footy down the stretch as well. And they get some wins, when the season's over. They sort of start to get some upsets in. So I reckon they'll do all right down the stretch. With Adokar, I mean, look, Blake Wilson's there as well. Blake Wilson has been preferred over Skelton so far. I don't know if Skelton did enough in that game to dislodge Blake Wilson. But look, 226K. I know they played late in the round too. I probably wouldn't do it. He's probably going to be a red dot for you, but he's only one injury away from getting into that team again. So keep an eye on it. Could be worth a shot. Next guy here is Sonny Luke, and he doesn't quite have the upside of Skelton, but he's got a spot in the team, to say the least. Sonny Luke's a weird one because we were talking about him at the start of the season, sort of just saying, let's watch him, let's see if he gets the minutes. And it felt like they were building him up to bigger minutes in about round 5. And we're at this point now where it's Mitch Kenny, 60, 70, 80 minutes. Sonny Luke, Beecher, if they feel like moving Mitch Kenny to the middle, right? So 228K, it's a cash out. The upside would only be there if Mitch Kenny got injured. Would you agree with that, or do you think Sonny Luke will see reasonably valuable minutes?
No, I think Sonny Luke's an easy one. He just kind of plugs in for 10, 20, 30 minutes any given week. He's just a guy you'll stick in at the end of your bench, and if you need a player to score you 10 points, that's him. I don't think there's much to talk about there. He's not that interesting. The interesting ones here are actually Dan Russell and how do you say Cole? We're going
to call him J. Cole.
Okay, J. Cole. Okay, I'll leave J. Cole to you, but Dan Russell, he's got the edge position this week. Jack Bird on the bench, so who knows how they'll line up. I assume a healthy Jack Bird starts in the team and Russell might go to the bench, but a healthy Jack Bird is, it's been a while since I've seen a healthy Jack Bird. So he's another guy that's a bit risky, but if he does play a couple of games starting back row, they've lost a lot of the edge back rowers. Sua's gone for the season. Murdoch Muso's out for a while. He should never have had the starting second row spot anyway, but that's for another discussion. I think this is a straightforward one, 235K, cash out. If he's starting edge for you, then great, he gets 2 points. Otherwise, it's another red dot. But like Longy is saying, these are just cash outs to pay for your guns. So I wouldn't worry too much. J. Cole, what are your thoughts on him?
J. Cole, I mean, I like the spot. Look, Cronulla, edge back row. Those guys score a lot of tries. Cronulla's attack is fantastic. Cronulla sometimes struggle against top sides. They've made some changes to remedy that. They obviously view J. Cole as a pretty solid defensive player if they're starting him there, because that seems to be what they're pushing towards. They've made some other changes too, though. So Talakai is out for Tracy. Moylan's out for Trindle. I don't think any of that affects J. Cole too much. Look, 240K. You got Teague Wilton out for potentially 4 weeks, potentially more as well. I think it's a tough one with J. Cole versus Dan Russell. I'd probably go J. Cole over Dan Russell. The risk is Wade Graham, but the upside is that he's a starting edge back rower on the Sharks. The fact that he's been chosen over a few of the guys on the bench, though, is a little surprising to me. There's a few other guys there. Like, I would have thought guys like Wade Graham, Jack Williams, all these guys might have come in first. So keep an eye on team lists heading in, and maybe make that trade just before when team lists are confirmed. But there is plenty of opportunity for him to go well. So I'm probably leaning him, but they're probably the two really interesting ones there.
The only problem with J. Cole is that he plays the last game of the round, which is annoying. But even they've got Talaka on the bench. He could come into the second row spot, which makes him, I guess, interesting. But,
yeah,
it's an awkward one. But, yeah, I agree.
Might be Russell then.
Yeah.
Because even Billy Burns on the other edge, he's not that solid as an 80-minute back rower. So there's plenty of room for Russell to work there. Let's go into the cheapies here. So 300 to 450 sort of thing. These are the guys where you don't want to cash out to a guy that could be a red dot. You probably want someone who's going to be a player for you. I'll throw Joe Fangawi to you first. Do you think that Regan Campbell-Gillard being out for 3 weeks, or is it 4 weeks? I think it's 4 weeks, eh?
Yeah, it's 4 weeks. I think CUO and RCG are both 4 weeks. Look, no, they've got Madison who'll step up. Even last week, Offa only got a handful of minutes. They got Greg.
He was about 15 minutes.
Yeah, I think I'd skip him. I want to run through some of these cheapies real quick, just because I'm running short of time here. But Offa, skip. Junior Tupou, he's dual position, right?
Yeah, and he's getting cheap.
He's getting real cheap. He has big game potential, and he's the one guy who's been a week-to-week appearance in that Tigers team, even though they have like a revolving door of backs. I think I really rate him. He's a good option. I don't think he'll be dropped. I think he's actually a pretty decent player. He's one of those young guys who just makes a lot of mistakes but has a lot of potential. I think they'll stick with him. Aaron Clark. I don't know. I'll let you talk about Aaron Clark. He's got the starting lock position this week, where he scored really well last year, but they've just got a lot of options. And at
it's that simple. It's that simple, man. He's proven it at lock before. Tino's out for 3 weeks, so 367K. I'm not going to do it, but if you want a starter in the middle, that's your guy. Joe Sawley, 381K. Look, he's just a bet on the Roosters going well and his talent. That's all you're doing there. The thing is, he's back to the wing, though. So he scores a lot better for fantasy on the wing.
It's strange, isn't it? Yeah. But
yeah, I mean, he's a beast there. Like
he's a beast.
One-on-one matchups.
And he'll score more tries, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas center, it's almost a bit of a smarter position, but he's not positioning guys around him, and he's not a playmaker, right? He's a dominant ball runner. He can do it at fullback. He can do it on the wing. I don't think he should have played center at all this year, really. So there's every chance that he could be sort of 500-600K by the end of the season. Again, he's just that dart throw if you don't have the cash. Yeah. And then Carraz, 445K. You had some interesting thoughts on him because they've got some tough fixtures coming up, the Dogs, obviously. Yeah. But you don't think that matters?
No, I think Carraz is an interesting option at this price. I don't think he got the dual position, which is strange. But, I mean, how does he not get dual position when Garrick does anyway? Carraz is an interesting one because he seems like a cash down option for a guy like, say, Bailey Simonson or, someone who's like at the 500, 600K mark in the centers. And I don't think Carraz and Simonson's scoring is that different. I think Simonson's been really reliant on tries and Eels having a high form. But Carraz is just very high work rate. And he is an odd runner. He loves to offload the ball, sometimes for no reason. Like, the offload does nothing for the Dogs, but it's 4 points for Carraz. So I actually think he's a bit more matchup proof than a standard winger center because he's pretty consistently hitting 150, 200 meters. He's fully healthy now. I think he was carrying niggly injuries through the year. He loves to, like I said, pop it out the back. And because of his weird running style, he does get a lot of tackle breaks. And Dogs are just involved in so many shootouts that they need to throw the ball around. And Sexton is good for him. So I'm seriously taking a look at him as a cash down option, so I can afford Cleary, etc. But I think he's shown that he can average 35 and that he has the 80-plus ability when he's scoring tries. I think that he's played 2 games at center now for a 45 and a 65. So he
could average 50-plus down the stretch.
Yeah.
There is that world, right? Because he makes 5 to 10 tackle breaks at the spot. And throwing some offloads, if Dogs play decent footy, look, he's not going to get dropped at any point. We were talking about it. They got 3 wingers now they can choose. They've got no centers. Averillo's now at fullback. Like, he's not going to get moved. He's going to keep that spot. I love him too, 445k. And we're talking about guys like Garrick and Joey Manu. You probably have the flexibility to buy a backup wing fullback who can cover for your wing fullback and your center wing, center spot there as well. Last group here is the hold or sell. So this is interesting. It really depends on your team, right? I'm going to preface it with that. You got to look at your own roster and you got to think, all right, do I actually need to sell one of these guys? I think for all these guys, they sort of live on the spectrum of you could hold, you could sell. For Dream Buller, he's the first one. I think you probably want to hold on to him this week just with the Dragons matchup and then potentially sell after this week, depending on how you think he went. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, hold for Dragons, and then if he's got a very low break even, which you probably will after that, you can hold him one more week. But I think Buller is a guy who can give you a 30, 35, 40, whereas if you can trade him to like a Marzu or a Garrick or a Reece Walsh, for example, or Latrell, you will.
I agree. And then Joey Tarpanay, I'll speak to Joey. I'll let you speak on Preston. So I've got Joey Tarpanay still at this point. He's been in great form, but we've got Josh Papali'i coming back. Horsburgh's out of Origin now. Their team is looking back to full strength. Even Hudson Young being in Origin helped him a lot too. I'm not sure if the minutes will be there for him down the stretch, so he's probably behind those top tier guns we were talking about. And I would be pretty surprised if he outscored Cam Murray down the stretch as well. So if we were going Tarpanay to Cam Murray and it gave you the 100k you needed to get Nathan Cleary, for example, totally worthwhile. But at the same time, if you need to keep Joey Tarpanay, that's fine too. He's going to score well, but probably not as well as those top two guys.
Yeah, I think I agree with your analysis there. Preston, he's an interesting one. He's kind of getting better as the season progresses. Like he's looking like one of the real threats, and he is arguably the best forward in that Dogs pack, which is crazy to say, but he probably is. Like I think he's the young one. He's got the best potential. He's a good defender, good meter reader, and good try scorer. Like, he knows how to find the line for an edge back role, which are great signs. 700k, like he's worth more than guys like Madison, Papali, Tohu now. So, I think edge back rowers, I think it's Fafita and then a huge gap and then like Bateman, Ali, etc. I don't think Preston is
especially on. Sorry, there. Blore is named this week. So
Blore at lock. So
make it back to the middle, and then he becomes that top two guy, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I think Preston, he's in that tier 2 category. Like Fafita's is tier 1 by himself, and Preston's in tier 2, so you can probably hold him. Unless you've got a lot of edges and you need another position, I would probably just hold Preston at this point. And 5 weeks ago, I was saying trade him for Papali or Bateman, but I don't know if that's worth the upgrade anymore. So Bateman maybe, but Bateman's significantly more expensive now, so probably not.
So I think Preston might suffer in these tough matchups we're talking about. They will buy very soon as well. Look, I can't say with any certainty or conviction, but I just reckon we're going to see a bit of a fall to earth from Preston over the next couple of games. And that's where it might be worth selling him, but there's not a great... look, what you want is Dave Fafita and John Bateman, in my eyes. You probably already have John Bateman from the buys, or Isaiah Papali'i, potentially. So if you're moving Preston to Fafita, absolutely worthwhile. It is a big upgrade there. Jack Cogger, easy sell. Dylan Edwards, look, Cleary comes back. They've got a pretty nice run of fixtures. They got the Dogs this week, who we were talking about there. If they pump the Dogs, it's bad for Preston, but it's pretty good for Dylan Edwards. Is he a guy you keep an eye on at a real cut price there, even as a buy there? Or if someone owned him, would you recommend they hold on to him at this stage?
Yeah, definitely hold. He's shown when Cleary's in the team that he's a top-tier fullback this year. The only concern is that he hasn't never been a top-tier fullback before, so he might just be regressing to the mean here. But I think, like you said, Panthers have a good run home. They're in good form. Cleary comes back. Dylan Edwards is one of those guys that finishes a lot of plays off the back of Cleary. He's a great support player. He's not like a Teddy type where he just busts tackles for fun in the middle of the field, or a Marzu type. But, I think Edwards at 580k, you're holding him. I think as a buy, he's good value as well, if you're looking to bring someone in. So, yeah, he's on my watch list, and he's almost a straight trade for a guy like Bailey Simonson. So that's a tempting option as well. But, yeah, I would hold him and even look to buy him if you needed a wing fullback this week and didn't have the funds for a Garrick or a Marzu type.
Yeah, he's super juicy. And look, I think Penrith are going to dominate down the stretch. I just reckon they're going to turn it up. They got Cleary back now. They got their guys rested through Origin. It's a good situation for Dylan Edwards. So 583k, he's undervalued by about 100k, let's say. Really good option there. Anyway, that's buy, hold, sell this week. Drop a note in the comments of what trades you're thinking of making this week, who you're captaining as well. Captain's going to be interesting. I haven't even decided on mine yet, but it's hard to go away from Cleary or Hines. Have you thought about that much at all?
No, Hines. If Cleary is fully fit, Cleary this week against Dogs. But I don't want a situation where they get 40-0 up in like 20 minutes and he gets an early rest. So I'll stick with Hines.
Well, look, Hines nearly had 70 last week in a game where they got pumped. So
Hines was 50 at halftime last week.
Yeah.
He dropped off in the second half, but the damage was done in the first half. It's crazy.
Yeah. So, he's an easy option.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll catch you on the next video, and peace out.